Michaela S. Cox. What an inspiration. She was born blind at 7 months old. They don't know what happened, but she got some of her eyesight back. She's still legally blind within those definitions, can't drive, etc. But she's a woman of faith, believes her spirituality helped. She's written 9 books, and she's got, as far as I can see, 100 more in her. Absolutely inspiring. She's 44 years old right now, she doesn't mind saying, but her latest book, The Inspiration, she calls 38 DDD, triple D. At 38 years old, she had 3 terrible Ds. The death of her husband, the divorce that happened earlier, and of course her disability. But she writes all her books, nonfiction, poetry, a series called Take a Sip, about motherhood. She has 2 beautiful children. Her process in which she writes is fascinating with her disability. I asked her about that right away. She wrote her first essay when she was 7 years old. She was excuse me, she was quite disappointed about the burning of the flag judgment that came down with the Supreme Court. So she took it upon herself to write an essay. Just an inspiring woman. Really enjoyed having a conversation with her. I know you're going to enjoy it as well. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Michaela C. Cox. I'm sorry?
I like to keep it easy.
Good. I do too. Michaela Cox, thank you so much for your time today. I'm very excited to talk to you. Is it difficult, not difficult, or easier or simpler, let's say, to be an excellent author as you are and to be legally blind?
It's definitely challenging. I mean, it's always been challenging. I mean, this is just what I do. But I'm glad to be here, by the way, and thanks for having me. And appreciate the opportunity. I mean, but I've been doing it's. I don't want to make it say that it's easy or simple. It's just I've been doing it literally my whole entire life as far as the visual impairment part and the legal blindness. So I've had 44 years of life times 365 plus, since November 7th. So you do the math. I'm not a math person. So a long time to practice and figure things out, so I don't know. I guess I make it work.
You certainly make it work with an excellent body of work. So you were born completely blind, not genetics, your parents, your no siblings, your kids didn't end up getting blind. It's just completely you. But then something happened at 7 where you regained some vision.
At 7 months old, yeah. I'm not sure of your background or what your audience is open to, but I'm a woman of faith. I've been a believer for more than not. I was 5 years old. And so we believe in my family that God decided to heal me and allow me to have sight and see, although it be visually impaired or legally blind, as you may want to call it, which it is. So anyway.
So at 7 months, do they know what happened? Do they know why? The doctors?
No, Like I said, I'm 44, so that was back in 78. So I'm not saying we have all the answers now, but we sure as heck have a lot more answers now than we would have this side of almost 50 years ago. Oh God, that sounds old. Not really, but is what it is, right? So they didn't have any answers in, and like you said, there's no family genetics, there's no nothing. So it seemed like a fluke. Now, I've not actually seen the research myself, and I'm not medically background, but when we were living in New Hampshire in the year my daughter was born in 2010, my eye physician had said that there was new research at the time. I don't know all the academics behind it because I don't actually study it. That supposedly there's rare occurrences of potentially fetal stroke while in the womb, and that might have been what it was. I don't know. There's no way of proving it, but in any case, whether that was the source of it or not, it was still, in fact, a healing and a miracle, in my opinion, because I went from having no sight to seeing. So you're not going to be able to prove it. You're not going to be able to find out what started it or what didn't. So even if it was a rare fluke instance of a fetal stroke, here we are. So I don't know if it really matters.
Right. Yeah, I guess it ultimately doesn't really matter because you've written 9 books. You've, we'll talk about that in a moment, 38 DDD. And when did you get, I've heard you speak a bit about when you first kind of got the bug to write. Can you talk about that? What happened?
Oh gosh, I've been writing a long time, longer than not. I've always written, even when I was a kid, I wrote. I mean, obviously, what I write today is not what you write when you're 8 years old. Please, dear God, I hope not. That's going to be sad, but especially after having a master's. But anyway, I wrote. I was a little bit of an odd duck growing up. I wait till I tell you, and you really think, dear God, you are odd, woman. But I had this crazy idea in second grade. So I don't know. It was 86, 87. We were living in Texas at the time. I needed to write an editorial and speak my mind of what I was upset about. And I'm guessing it was around the time the Supreme Court made the decision. I'm guessing this is what it is because what I wrote on was how I was offended that you can burn the flag in this country and it be acceptable and First Amendment rights. I don't want to get into politics, but it was my first piece that I ever wrote is the point. So although I could get into politics, I don't mind it. But that's what I'm saying. I'm an odd duck. What second grader, number one, thinks to write an editorial? Number two is aware enough to pay attention to some political issue, and number three thinks I need to write about it. So I don't know, whatever. And then I wrote my first poem in 4th grade, and then I've just always written.
So in second grade, the teacher didn't give you an assignment. You just took it upon yourself to write an editorial.
Mm-hmm.
And did you submit it to?
Mm-hmm.
Did you submit it to the paper? What did you do with this editorial?
They published it, and I put it in I have 5 series I write, and one of them is politics. And so the first book that came out in the political series in 2020, I actually put it in the beginning of the book, the 2 political editorials I've written, as kind of an homage and ode to the beginning of my political roots.
And politics only kind of plays a small role. I mean, I guess we'll talk about it, but let's talk about that process. I mean, in the body of your books, I would say politics plays a smaller role, perhaps not in your life.
Yeah, I have 5 series that I write, and I'll probably add a 6th at some point. Not like I don't have enough work to do.
Are you ever not writing?
I didn't get a lot of writing done today. I had other stuff to do, but generally speaking, during the school year, because I'm a mom, so my life kind of revolves around what schedule is best for the kids, and I can get more writing done when they're in school. But generally speaking, yes, August through May, as many days as I'm able in the morning time. I'm on Central Time, but 9:30, 10 o'clock, unless I have a meeting, I'm on the keyboard writing 2 or 3 hours a day. That's how I get them knocked out.
So back when you're in second grade, it's about 7 years old, you're upset about the decision the Supreme Court makes, and you decide to write this editorial. Now, do you outline first and then say, I'm going to commit 500 words to this? Do you have, what was your process then?
No, it's at your 8. You just write what you want. And I don't even think it was that long. I think it was maybe 50 or 100 words. It's real short, but now I do. A lot of authors will have like a word count they shoot for each day. I don't know, depending on how they want to do it. But I personally and there's nothing wrong with that because it's a good approach. It's just not what I do. I know a lot of authors that do. I take a look at the project that I'm currently working on, and I'll look at the table of contents, and I'll go like, okay, this is supposed to have 40 chapters in it. Okay, we're in January. The kids will be in school, I don't know, 20 days out of this month. So if I write 2 chapters a day, then I should have this book rough draft knocked out in a month. That's how I do it, whatever it is. So I look at the project.
But how do you know how many chapters a book's going to have?
I'm a planner. Now, granted, within the world of authoring and publishing, you usually have 2 schools of thoughts of writers, either ones that are planned or ones that are like, yeah, I'm just going to see where it takes me. That's usually more in fiction, I think. I'm very much a planner. I like to know where I'm headed. I have to know where I'm starting first. Now, that is not to say that it cannot change a couple of times over once I get into the project if it needs to. But I have it laid out what I want to do and where I'm going first, and then I may change it a couple of times.
So is it an outline or like a storyboard?
No, it's an outline because I do nonfiction, and so it's like a all the chapters in the table of contents is what I'm going off of. So
I see. So you create the table of contents before writing them.
Well, because it's like my outline, and then that's what that ends up being the table of contents. Okay, so this is what happens. So because I'm legally blind and I don't have a lot of time to write when I'm in school, because that's literally my whole life when I'm in school. I was in grad school for 5 years because I had to go really slow, and I did, I can't do just one thing. So I did my master's and a graduate certificate. You should have heard what my undergraduate was. And I had all these ideas and all these percolations and brainstorms, but I couldn't deal with that because I was writing for all the professors. Oh, I was writing all right, but it was academia. It was all the history papers and all the political science papers. But so I stuck away all of my ideas. And then in 2016, when I was done with grad school, I said, I don't want to see a book. I don't want to hear the word book. I don't want to nothing for a month. I had to like dump everything. I just want to relax after 5 years of work. And then my daughter, she was going into 1st grade that year. So I decided when she started school that I would take all these ideas I'd had for 5 years and organize them. And I did that. I thought, okay, well, since I don't have grad school work to do anymore, my son was still at home. He wasn't in school yet. So I'll trade nap time and nighttime for grad school work for my writing time. And that's what I did. And then I started fall of 2016 was the beginning of my Motherhood series. And I had written 2.5 books. And then in April, all hell broke loose in life. And so I had to figure all that out, which is part of the story that we'll get to, I'm quite sure, in a minute. And then it took me about a year to get back into writing. And since then, I've written, I don't know, I had done 2.5 in New Hampshire. So I finished the 3rd at some point, and then I did another 5, I think. Anyway, something like that. And one's at the editor. I'm already trying to finish up one now. And anyway, one just got done at the formatter's office. Yeah. That's what I do. And
you decided to self-publish.
Yeah. I tried getting into traditional publishing for a year and it didn't work. So I thought, okay, all right, that's not going to work, but I know I'm supposed to write, so I'll find another way of doing it. And I did. So that's what we did.
So the 38 DDD, you're 38 years old and 3
I was in 2017.
Devastating.
Yeah.
In 2017, yes.
Yeah, that was 6 years ago. So I'm 44 now. But at the time when all the 3rd one happened, I was 38 and had already been and still am disability from birth, as we've talked about. And then when I was 26 and 05, I had a divorce. That was fun. Not. No one says divorce is fun. It might be liberating, but it ain't fun. Depending on your story. And then in 2017, after I'd gotten divorced in 05, I remarried, and we had been together for almost 2 years of dating, 10 years of marriage in 2017 until he passed away. So death of beloved husband by the age of 38 after being divorced and still being disabled. Fun times.
Well, it's nice to be able to laugh about it now.
Oh, I'm just trying to, it's still hard, don't get me wrong, but
right.
It is.
But you've got great children from it, and you're and you're born. Yeah, it's very inspiring. So if we just kind of go through, so in 2011, you released Heartfelt Meditations.
Yes, that was my first one that I did.
Your first one.
I had picked at that one for over 10 years because I'd actually started in high school. But like I said, when I'm in school, I don't really get to write on a regular basis. So I had to pick at it. And then after high school was college, still picking at it. Then I got married and then got divorced. So then I finished that one up probably while I was getting separated and divorced. And then life kept happening to me and moving on to new chapters and new adventures. And then I finally finished it and got it edited and all the things. And so then I got it published in 2011. I went a different way at that point because I didn't know about the things that I use to publish now. So I went through a company that kind of helps you self-publish, but it's not me doing it. They're doing it for you and give you a product. So it was a little bit different back then, but I've moved on to other ways of doing it. And then at that time in 2011, I thought, oh, I need to start grad school, even though I have an 8-month-old. And yeah, publish your book. Not great timing, but that's the way it went. So anyway.
Is poetry a large part of your life?
It was then, and at some point I might revisit that because I have other books I feel like I could build out in that series at some point, but I have way long of a project list that I'm working on right now that it is much more of just like, I mean, poetry is nonfiction, but more of the style of what I've written in the other series that I've been working on for the last, I don't know, since 2019 when I published my first Motherhood book. So I guess the last going on 4 years coming up, I think, in the fall.
You can't even keep track. There's so many, Michaela. So in 2019, so that's a full 8 years, but you said life kind of happened. In 2019, you have the Take a Sip series. You have Take a Breath and Go, and then you have a companion book in March of 2020. Talk to me about the process of those two.
Well, those were kind of the ideas that came out in grad school and started when I was a new mom because we were living in New Hampshire at the time, 26 hours away from most of my friends and family. And so I didn't really have girlfriends like, oh God, you won't believe what my kid did today. And what do y'all do? You know, all the things that women do. I don't know what you dads talk about. Maybe y'all have y'all's own version of that, but us gals, you know, that's how we, whatever. And so I thought, well, the world is half women in the population, give or take. So that means half the world is probably going through this. So I can't be the only one that are having these thoughts and emotions and feelings. So I think I'll write them down. And so I did. And then I thought, well, if I can do it for motherhood, I can do it for faith and religion, and I can do it for politics, and I can do it about my own life story, although that takes a little bit different of material approach. And then I decided after having kids that the other series I did, it's for my children, but it's not a children's book. It's okay, kids, I know mom says everything's really, really super uber important, but when you're 18 and you leave this house, this is what I want you to remember. Take it with you. Because parents are always saying everything's important, and you're like, yeah, we heard that you say everything's important, but no, this is what I really want you to remember when you leave my house. And it's in a book, so you can't tell me you don't know about it.
Noble. Very nice. So you're born in Texas. I believe you go to Oklahoma and then go back to Texas. Is that correct?
I was born in Texas. My family moved to Louisiana in 88.
Louisiana, yes.
And I lived in Louisiana until 2007 when I moved to New Hampshire. And then I had to come back to Louisiana in 2017. I wish I was in Texas.
New England itself is a big difference from Texas and Louisiana. I mean, without the, you've got 4 seasons, you've got just very different, without that environment, without that kind of culture there in the Northeast, would you be able to write these 2 books? Take a Sip?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would have come up with it anyway, but it may not have come out in the way that I thought it did, or, you know, I don't know. I'm sure it would have come in some format.
And your next one, so right in that same year, so June of 2020, Scripture, Spirituality, and Our Culture, Seeking the Place of Faith and Benefit in Today's Culture. I mean, this is months later, Michaela.
Well, you have to remember, I'd already written book 1 and book 2, and half of the third one in New Hampshire before I moved to Louisiana. So it was already written. I just published it and the book production side of it. And then most of the ideas of all of these series we're talking about, I formulated in grad school. I just couldn't write them, and then I organized them, and then I'm just slowly picking off project by project by project. So like I'm hoping I'll be relaunching a lot of the first ones this year, and then the following month I'll be releasing book 2 in all these series. I hope this year, except for the political one, because that one will come out in 2024, I think. So anyway, but yeah, so that means hopefully in February I'll be relaunching the first one you just talked about in the religious series, and then the second one in that series, The Ripple Effect. So.
And is there a specific goal you're trying to? You're kind of voicing your opinion, like you say, you're a nonfiction, and these are your feelings. But is there something you want the reader to take away with at the end of reading these books?
I want people to think about things and notice things and kind of open up a dialogue and a conversation about these hard topics and think how it might could apply to them and what they can learn from and use it in their life, at least in that series. Same for motherhood and definitely for politics. But the other series, like parenting and my life story one, I want to help people really be intentional about what we're teaching our kids. And then maybe in my life story one, okay, if she did it, then maybe we can do it too and help them understand what it takes to overcome. So influence.
And again in 20, yeah, you could tell you're trying to strike more, more inquisitive, more conversation. And then again in August of 2020, living the beach life, lessons learned, surfing the waves of the sun. Yeah. And again in 2020, again September, a month later, before the clock strikes midnight. I mean, you're pouring out so much material in 2020.
It's just the way it went. It's the way the production went. I was able to get them published. So.
And then 20 and 21, you say we the people. So this is where you're getting kind of into political stuff here, correct?
Yeah, I wanted that one to come out in November of 2020 for the election, but it didn't happen. So that's okay. My perfectionist feathers got over it, so it was a little delayed, but at least it's out. And then that's why I want to keep that series more around the election cycle of our country. So yeah, we the people.
And the idea there is you wanted to have it around election time to help voters with perspective.
Yeah, and understanding. I don't know where your audience comes down on topics, or you do necessarily, and we may be on the same side, we may be opposite, but that's not even the point. I have a love for this country and our system of government, and whether people like it or don't like it, you have to understand what it is in order to appreciate it and know what it is that you want to change, and then change it the correct way. I mean, you're not going to play football or baseball or basketball and get on that field or that court and play the game. Or if you want to play it well, you're going to have to play it by the rules, or they're going to eject you, or you're going to get fouled, or you're going to get, whatever sport we're talking about, a penalty or something, or a flag on the play. You're not going to be able to play it well. And so we can't run this country or really appreciate what this country is supposed to be about if we don't understand the rules. You may not like the rules, but at least you need to understand and appreciate them, and then you can figure out what to do about them. So.
And what if there's those that want to change the rules?
Well, then understand them first and learn how to change them correctly. And the format in which it was set up to change them.
Very interesting. And then again in 2021, you're pouring out more. Now I see, which is actually very interesting, of course, given your condition, a lifetime of learned truths along my journey through life. And then months later, take a double shot, take 2 breaths, ready, set, go.
Well, now I see came out of the fact that now, in fact, I do see when I didn't when I was born. But then it's also on the deeper level of, okay, what do I see in life now because of what those experiences have taught me and the lessons learned. So.
Is it more difficult to write fiction or nonfiction?
I don't write fiction because I'm smart enough to know my brain doesn't work that way. So I would argue that it would be harder to write fiction for me. But just as people say to me, oh my God, I can't believe you can write all this stuff. That must be so hard. To me, it's just who I am. It's what I do. It flows out of me. So I'm quite sure, even though there are probably challenges in writing fiction, a fictitious author who's good at what they do, meaning someone who writes fiction, I should have said a fiction author, not fictitious author, would probably think it's just natural. It just flows out of me. It's just how their mind works. So I don't know.
Have you ever written anything I'm sorry?
I would think writing fiction would be very challenging because that's not easy for me. My brain doesn't work that way. I think it's fascinating. I respect it. I just know that's not what I'm supposed to write because my brain doesn't think that way.
You don't think you'll ever write fiction?
I might have one in me, but that's going to be a long time because I have too much other stuff to do right
now. Have you ever written anything that you regret you submitted to paper?
No, not really. I write what I love and what I'm passionate about and what interests me. And that makes it easier to write too, by the way.
Yeah. Do you ever suffer with the blank page?
Yes, it's agonizing, but I've learned tricks of the trade that work for me. So, yes, that is very frustrating. Trust me.
Is it really? So I would think with all this backlog of books you have ready to go, that you would just trudge right through it. But the blank page does intimidate you. What do you do with it?
It's sometimes, even though I know the ideas, I can't speak for every author, but in my case, I know that sometimes it's just getting started and formulating that exact right first sentence to start the introduction. And then after that, usually when I have the introduction done, it's downhill from there for me because a true introduction sets you up for the rest of the piece you're writing because it's just explaining where you're going. But if I ever do get stuck or for some reason the creative juices and energy is not flowing very well that day, I usually just, okay, let's just stop. Let's take a breath, literally. Maybe I listen to music and just decompress. Maybe I don't run, but if I was on a treadmill or go to the gym or something and just like clear my head and get all the out of the way and just let the free flow thought come back in and like, oh, now I know what to do and then I can go write. That's just my process. I'm sure there's other authors that would have a different approach, but that is my process. So.
And has that process changed from your first book?
No, not really. Whenever I get stuck, that's what I do.
And with your political stuff, do you ever get pushback from opposing views?
I'm sure I will at some point once it gets more probably known, but I haven't had that problem yet. But I'm working on getting it out there more. I don't want to be the author in the forest per se, as I like to say.
And that's a very interesting point. Like, what would you do with somebody with an opposing view like that? I guess it all depends on how they mannered it, if they were a troll or not.
It's a free country. That's the whole point and the beauty of America. They're entitled to their opinion as much as I am. Now, if you want to have a serious, actual, real debate about let's debate the points, okay, let's go. But they have as much right to say what they want as I do.
And Michaela, how has motherhood changed what you write?
It gave me 2 whole series for one thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It certainly has. Would you have been, I don't know how to word this, but at 38 years old, you had the 3 Ds, the divorce, the death, of course, and the disability as which you were born with. I mean, does that fuel your inspiration to write as well? The anger, the negative from that?
No one told me you need to write. I think it was something told me when I was a kid that you're different. You may not have the same opportunities as everyone else, but they can't take your words and they can't take your voice. It's always mine. They can't control that. They can't deny you that because as long as I'm able to have my mind and write, I can write as whatever I want. And I think that's why it works for me.
Is that why you do it? You want to be heard?
It's part of it, and I feel like I have something to say, and I feel like with the material that I write now, maybe I can help someone or empower someone and with whatever they're going through. I do know
go ahead.
There's an expression that says what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Well, there's an author version of that. What kill you gives you something to write about, and Lord knows I have a lot to write about. So there's lots of pages and chapters to be filled.
If I made you, the owner, the CEO of the largest publishing, I don't even know who they are at this point, largest publishing house in the world, what would you do differently in the whole book industry? What would you do differently as an author?
That's a very different ballgame, because then you're in charge of all of it, and you're not just accounting for your voice, you're accounting for, I would imagine any reputable publishing house would have a wide range on their client or author roster with a variety of topics and subjects and genres. So each one of those genres is going to have a different slant, and each voice within that is going to have a different purpose behind it. So you have to be willing to work and do all of that, and then also meet the market and what the market's craving. And I don't have to make those decisions as an author, so I don't know how I would run all that, and I don't really want to.
So you don't have anger towards the publishing industry. They're just a business. They're trying to make money, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. I found my own way, and that's okay. I've done that most of my life.
But joining a publishing house would get you more visibility, but you'd have to give up a lot on the back end. But you'd prefer, obviously, to do it this way.
Yes, I do. And I know there's benefits to the traditional publishing world. I've heard in the communities I've been in that as you get established as a self-publishing author, sometimes opportunities from the traditional publishing world can come your way, and that gives you advantages. And then that might work for that person at that time. And if so, then pursue it. But I'm not in that place. So if that ever did happen, then I would consider the pros and cons and see what I want to do and trying to make an informed decision.
You don't have any audiobooks.
I want to, though. That's very important to me. I'm trying to work on that right now. It's extremely important because it's literally academically and pleasurably how I take in material and content and learning. And so I value it immensely because it allows me to do what I do. But it's also regardless of someone's own background, whether they're in my position or not. I just think with our world as busy as it is, it's a lot easier to listen to an audiobook either because you're vacationing and traveling, or you're on a plane, or you're commuting all the time. And it's just easy to get it in your day when you can play it while you're doing other things. So I see immense value, and I really hope to finally get an audiobook out in the near future. I'm trying to work on that part. It's more involved than just writing, but I'd like to think, and my dream would be to have all of my books on audio at some point, but that is quite a different process altogether.
Yeah, I consume most of the books I read or listen to through audio. I just put it in my ears, and I prefer that. I would assume that you do that as well.
Yeah, I either have someone read to me or I listen to audio. I have to be, it's not because I don't love books or learning or material. I have to be extremely dedicated and determined if I'm going to physically hold a book in my hand and actually physically read it with my eyes, because it just doesn't work as well. It takes me way longer. So not really fun at that point.
Right. Michaela, do you have other artistic outlets?
Not really. I'm mainly a writer. I make
You said, there's a.
I make back Christmas for my friends, but that's really the yeah.
And when you're in writing mode, I think you mentioned it before, where you don't do an actual word count. You do more of by the time, chapter by chapter. That's the way you do it. And your editing process, you say you do outsource that because you're a terrible editor. I think you mentioned once.
Oh yeah. Okay. I hate editing. I hate cleaning house. I'd rather clean house than edit. I'm like, nope, there's a reason why there's spell check and grammar check and Hemingway and Grammarly and all those wonderful, amazing things. Thank God. And editors, they get paid to do that, and I get to go do things that I prefer and I'm better at. I don't have to spend my time doing that. It's called delegation, people.
Do you have a clash with it? Yeah, delegate it. Yeah. Do you have a clash with the editor?
Not really. They're doing their job, and I do my job. And I learned a long time ago, there's a difference between having someone try and tell you what to do with your voice versus when they're giving constructive criticism to improve it so that it's communicated in the best way possible to reach your audience. And as long as it's protecting my voice, but yet mastering the craft to make it sound well and communicating through print or whatever, audio or whatever, with structure and grammar and all the things that I don't want to have to think about, I'm good with that. I need to learn how to improve on those things, and constructive criticism that's going to help it be better to reach more people, then I'm all for, but still protect your voice, which I do. So,
have you ever considered being a ghostwriter? Has anybody approached you?
I don't think
would you consider it?
I would have to be an interesting project because for one, I have enough of my own writing to do. And second of all, if I do the work, I want my name on it. Because it's my work. Now, granted, a ghostwriting, you're writing someone else's story, so their name should be on it. But I've always felt like, and I'm sure it serves a purpose, but I always felt like if I'm going to take the time to write it, then my name should be on it for whatever reason.
And yeah, I always wonder about that profession, about ghostwriting. So there's these writers that just help or write things for people. That's their whole job. It's very interesting. It takes a lot for me to write. I'm a much better speaker than I am writer. I have to kind of outline things. And then what was the old Mark Twain quote when he wrote a letter to his sister? He said, "I'm sorry it's so long. I didn't have time to shorten it up," or something like that. So I find that writing is just so time intensive for me. Just constantly editing and cutting it down and making it perfect just takes so much time. But you don't do editing.
Well, two things. One, I don't believe in editing while you're writing. I feel like that doesn't work as well as the free flow creative thought of just letting it be what it needs to be. And then you can go back and fix it. Because I almost feel like if you're always correcting as you're going, it's like you're telling your creative brain, no, we can't do this. No, don't write that. And it's like it might stop the creative flow. You can always fix it later. I would rather just let it flow out the way it's supposed to and see what it creates and then fix it. But then second of all, I don't do editing. I'm not good at it and it takes too long. So I'm like, now I do know a lot of authors, a way that they speed up the process. They'll speak their books, like they'll dictate them and then transcribe them. So a lot of people, a matter of fact, the organization that helped me self-publish, that's what they teach to do. You can write a book a lot quicker if you'll speak it and transcribe it instead of actually doing what I do and just plug it out on the keyboard, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a great process if that's how your mind works. Mine does better when I'm actually thinking it through as I'm typing it. So I choose to do it that way. I could do the other, but I don't think I get what I want out as well as if I would just actually clunk it out or plug it out on the keyboard like I do. So I choose to do it that way. Yes, it takes me longer, but that's how that works better for my process. But a lot of people do that and speed up the process, like you said. They speak their books and then transcribe them and then put them into a doc or whatever to make a manuscript out of it.
Writing fascinates me. It's so difficult. It comes so unnaturally for me. I have such great envy and respect for authors like yourself. So on the podcast, Michaela, I always bring up discipline. I started my business and I gained a lot of weight. People ask me how I lost it. The doctor said I'm not going to see my daughter graduate if I don't, lose weight. And I got to a very heavy level and I lost a bunch of it. And they asked me how I did. I always say discipline. I just got focused. I got discipline. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life.
Very disciplined. I mean, well, I would like to tell you something first before you approach this, because this thought to me. Should you ever choose to write a book, here's a good way to think about it. You like to speak, yes?
I do.
Okay, have you ever given like a keynote speech?
Many times.
Okay, how did you create that talk?
How did I create it? I outlined it in PowerPoint.
Yeah. Take that outline of a speech. You have an outline for a book, and then what you may speak on in a talk for like 5 minutes or whatever, you just add to it and make a little bit longer for a chapter. So let's say anyone's keynote speech has, I don't know, 3 sections. Okay. Because they all say 3 points. Okay. So that might be your 3 section of your books. but you don't just talk about one thing in that section. You might have 3 other subpoints, right? So then there's your 3 chapters of each section. You have 9 chapters. Same concept. You just build
Sounds
them
so
out.
simple.
It's just a way of thinking about it. So if you ever did want to entertain it, you're doing the same thing that you're doing in a talk. You're just making a little bit longer and then letting that be your guide for creating your content and your outline and your mind map, as some people call it, for the structure of your book.
But when I speak, I can use inflection. And, you know, my father's Italian. I use a lot of hand gestures, right? I can slow and I can speed. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm just unfamiliar with the tools, perhaps. Yeah. And I can just kind of think, I don't know. It takes a lot for me to write.
Yeah.
Me specifically, not for you though. I'd assume that you're a better writer than you are speak. Have you ever given keynotes? Do you publicly speak?
No, but I want to. I've built out my keynote, and I've been working on trying to get a TEDx talk because I like to talk. I did speech and drama in high school and middle school for 6 years, so I'm not afraid to talk in front of people. I don't know if that's obvious. No, not me. I'm very shy. No, kidding. And I'm trying to create a live event right now with a collective that we're working on, and I would love to get into paid speaking. I don't have a problem doing it.
Very interesting.
That's what I'm working on too. Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you consider yourself disciplined?
Yes, I do. I mean, we're not perfect. I probably have, I think I'm going to do this today. But generally speaking, yes, because I have goals. I want to accomplish them. Unfortunately, in writing or any creative endeavor, the wonderful muse of inspiration does not always come every day. And if you wait for that, you're be waiting a long ass time for you to get inspired to write every day. So you just have to decide. I don't know who said it, but there was a quote about writing. The art of writing is applying the ass to the seat. That means you have to be disciplined and commit to it. Like, if you want to do this, then you need to come up with a plan and make time for it. Like you do everything else. We do what's important to us. If we want to go work on our diet, then it's going to be important just to make better choices. If we want to lose weight, we're going to take time to go to the gym or whatever that system is for you or that discipline is. Same for me. I want this book done. So I know now I don't during the summer as much because my kids are home all the time and I'm a mom first. And so, but I make it where I get most of my content written during the school year. And then during the summer, I do other things related to the books. And as they get older, that'll probably shift. But for right now, that's what works for me. So Monday through Friday, or at least 4 days a week, if I don't have an early morning meeting like I did today, by 9:30, I have woken up. I've gotten the kids out the door. I've done whatever I need to do for me, whether it's meditation or my quiet time or whatever. I've had breakfast. I'm 9:30, 10. It's writing time. I don't care that the dishes have to be done. I don't care that the laundry has to be done. Now, that's not to say that my kids don't get laundry done, but during those 2 to 3 hours, that's all that matters. The dishes will wait. The laundry will wait, unfortunately. I wish that was not the case, and there was some fairy godmother that was making the writing, the dishes getting done, and the laundry getting done while I'm writing. But I promise you, it ain't going nowhere. The dishes will not disappear, so they can wait 2 hours or 3 hours where I get my content done for that day, and then I take a break because my eyes are mad at me. They're like, "Woman, you have lost your mind if you're going to make us write anymore or work anymore right now." So then I take my break, give my eyes times to rest, and then I go do my chores and the other things I need to do, and then I might write or do other visual work later. It's discipline. That may look for everyone. Like someone else who writes may have just their one writing day a week. Okay, that's fine. Or it may be 30 minutes. When I was in grad school, I didn't write all day. I didn't write at all except for the professors. But when I got out of grad school, I had a daughter in elementary school and a toddler or preschooler at home. So I didn't spend all day doing it. I took nap time and nighttime. But every day during nap time, I was trying to write at least one chapter a day. That was my writing time. I did other stuff during other times when either I didn't have the quiet to write or when my eyes were exhausted and didn't want to do visual work. So I shifted it. That's why I prefer to write in the morning, because my eyes haven't been being used all day doing all the things in the world. So I let my writing time, even with podcast interviews, generally speaking, I don't interview during the morning time. I reserve that for the afternoons because I don't need to write in the afternoons. I need to write in the morning. I don't care if my eyes are tired when I'm talking. I'm not using them. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with the other. So I write Monday through Friday, or at least 4 days a week, as much as possible, from about 9:30, 10 at the latest, for a couple hours, and then I go on and do my other things during the day. Discipline. That's whatever time you have. If you want to be a writer, you have to come up with a system, no matter how short or how long, that you shut the world out. You ignore all the other things that during that writing time. That's not to say those other things aren't important, but I promise you can get to them later when you're done writing if you really want to write. An athlete, whatever sport they want to learn and do professionally, they're not going to put other things before their training or whatever it is. They're going to do that first, or that's going to be a major part of their day. Then when that time is done, they'll do all the other things. Writing's the same way. So if you're a songwriter, you're going to make sure you get your music written. Whatever your thing is, you're going to give that first priority, or pretty close on the top of your list in your day, that you put your time on. That for me is writing. During the mornings, I write. Then I go on and do other things. And I promise you, they're still here when I get done writing.
Has being legally blind, has that forced you to be disciplined in other areas? Has that shifted you?
Yes, I've always had to be disciplined. I don't like procrastination. I don't like chaos. I don't know if I would be this way anyway, but I've always had to do things very specifically, not because I necessarily care in and of myself, but in order to get all this stuff done that everyone goes like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that. Well, it didn't happen by itself. It didn't happen overnight. I didn't have that fairy godmother wand, okay? There was no sprinkle fairy dust. I worked at that. And I put in the time and the energy and the effort. Now, one of the key components of what's going on with my eyes is it takes me really long time to do that stuff. So I have to be disciplined and very organized and very structured to make sure that I've accounted for the time that it takes to ensure that it's complete. So yes, I'm big on that.
Yes, you are. Michaela S. Cox, what motivates you?
In writing, in life, in what sense?
You pick one.
And writing because I care about it and I'm passionate and I feel called to do it. In life, I'm not going to let the world tell me no. I believe I was taught and raised not to give up, not to quit, never stop, and you do the best you can and you figure it out and you keep going. If you can't move the mountain, like my disability is not going anywhere, and that's okay. But I can find ways around it for the most part. There's a few things I'll never be able to do and probably not a good idea. Like I don't drive. That's usually driving and legal blindness is two things that should not go together. Okay, that's not smart for anybody. That's a good thing. But I found ways around it. If I can't move that, then I can find things to do otherwise, like Uber or Lyft or friends, or I pay an assistant and we run errands. So on errand day, I don't generally write that day because I'm taking care of other things. And that works for me. So there's ways around things if you want to be creative and think outside the box and be resourceful if it matters to you. We all do what matters to us or what's important, and you figure it out. There's the expression of sit back and hold my beer and watch. Well, that's pretty much been my attitude in life. I mean, you probably can tell I'm a redhead and I'm obviously a Southern girl, Texas girl, and a Scorpio. So that's pretty much lives up to its reputation. Yeah. Telling me no pretty much ensures that I'm going to do my damnedest to make it happen. And I believe if you want it done right, you better do it yourself.
Good for you. You mentioned that you were called to do this.
Yeah, I feel like I am.
God gave you this ability, this skill, and you're using it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's
why
wonderful.
I share my story. That's why I tell my message. It was given for a reason and a purpose, and maybe it can help someone else. I don't want it to be wasted. That would be maddening.
And how do you measure success?
I think that can be left into interpretation. I think there's the world version of it, like by metrics of how big is your salary or how big is your bank account or your portfolio or what promotions you got or whatever, which are great. But I think there's other successes that can be measured just as well. Are you contributing? Are you providing, love you too, providing good in the world and trying to make it a better place and influence and change it. And, what makes you happy in life that may not be someone else's success, but if you're happy and you're doing what you were put on this earth to do, whatever that looks like for you, then that may be your version of success. Some days in the journey that I've been traveling over the last almost 6 years, the fact that I'm just still standing and doing the best I can, that is considered a win because it's not been an easy journey. And then there's some days where I managed to get a lot more done. I'm like, heck yeah, man, I'm rocking it. Let's take that. That's a win. So wins, what looks like one win one day and another win another day, can be totally different things. It depends on your definition and interpretation.
You have a wonderful spirit, Michaela, and you have a light about you. And I was very excited when you accepted this, and I was excited to talk to you. And thank you so much for your time today. Anybody who's listening, how can they get in touch with you?
All of my books are on Amazon, and I have a website, and I'm on Facebook. But if you go to my website, myheartfeltmeditations.com, you can see all the things that are where my stuff's at. And I really appreciate your most kind and gracious words and for this opportunity to share and hopefully instill some nuggets of gold with your audience and something that can give value and contribute.
Well, you've been absolutely wonderful. I love talking to you. My Heartfelt Meditations, plural. Go there to the website. I'll put my team will put links in the show notes. You're also on Instagram. Now I see 779. Is that correct?
Yes, and I'm on Facebook and other things. So.
Yeah,
I'm just the best at
779.
I try.
Yeah. It takes a lot of effort. Michaela, thank you so much. I wish you the best of luck. I can't wait to see your new stuff when it comes out. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And you be well.
You as well. And thank you again. Hope to connect again later.
You be well. Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypinz.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. It's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.